p.m. I call this council meeting to order. Council procedural notes. I just want to let council know and the public that is watching that we will be moving to a hybrid method when it comes to our in-person council meeting. So moving forward, we will have general committee virtually, and we will be meeting in person for council meetings. The next public planning meeting, because it was advertised, will be held in person. But after that one will also be moved to a virtual meeting. As there is a rise in the numbers, we felt that this was in the best interest to keep everyone safe, from staff to council and the public. So just wanted to let council know. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with the added items? We need 2/3. Someone like to move that? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Gallo, question.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question as to why, I guess, the added item is 8.1. Is that right?
My understanding is it was time sensitive.
Is it time sensitive?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Call the vote. Mr. Clerk, is Councillor Gaertner here? She's not on? Okay. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Community presentations. We have one. Deputy Fire Chief Rocco Volpe in regards to cost recovery program. Deputy Chief? Floor is yours, sir.
Evening, Your Worship and members of Council of Aurora. It's my pleasure to be here this evening at your council meeting. I bring greetings from Fire Chief Ian Lang. He sends his regrets. Unfortunately, he had other commitments and he wasn't able to attend. So I wanted to thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to come. I asked the Clerk's Department if I could have 5 minutes of your time just to explain to you all the great things that are happening with the cost recovery program. So if you remember last year, I was here explaining to you about the launch of expanding our cost recovery program, known as the motor vehicle collision piece of it. So through JCC, through Council of Newmarket, that got approved for a 2-year trial. So I'll speak to that one just to put it in content what the cost recovery program is. So I just provided a couple tiles for you. There's just 3 or 4. So currently Central Air Fire has always had a cost recovery program, and I just provide some samples of what some of our users' fees look like. So you're probably known for our fire inspection. When we complete certain types of inspections, there's a fee to that. Fire reports that are issued through FOIs, through insurance companies and other agencies requesting. We also have a user fee for fire extinguisher training. When we conduct industrial and commercial inspections. And from the fire suppression side, you're probably familiar with our outdoor burning bylaw. That if you kind of have a 3-strike rule, then there is a user fee that would be applied if you were in contravention. We also had hazardous material response, where if we had to deal with hazardous material for uses of our equipment and decommissioning of our suits and all that. And you're probably aware of the false alarms that we attend. We call those the nuisance alarms, and again, it's a 3-strike rule. So if we go to any residential or commercial property and there's a nuisance alarm happening, then there is a user fee to that. So from that from those user fees, we expanded and asked JCC if we could have a 2-year trial to expand it and implement the motor vehicle collision. So that started in January 1st of this year. So things are looking good. From that launch of that 2-year pilot, we also hired a permanent part-time person by the name of Alexandra. So she works with us, and she's great. She's all trained up on the software, and she started in that position in January. So as you know, it's a 2-year pilot, and it's going to be completing the end of December 31st, 2021. And by the end of this year, I'll have some financial actuals to present to JCC on how the program is doing. So 10 months have gone by, and we decided as a management group that we wanted to expand the program further. So again, we went back to JCC, and through their leadership, they approved on September 1 a fire report that was presented to them to expand the cost recovery program to pick up 5 additional services. And the ones that are on the PowerPoint are the additional 5 that we requested. Hydro incidents, drug labs, post-fire investigations, extraordinary expenditures. So on September 21, at Committee of the Whole at Town and Newmarket, Council approved the user fee. The new user fee that we wanted to implement for a start of October 1st. So in summary, we asked that if this could be a 1-year pilot, and the reason why we asked for a 1-year pilot is so it would dovetail nicely on the completion of the 2-year motor vehicle collision program. So after that, at the end of December 31st, we would seek JCC's approval if they would like to continue the program, dismantle the program, or take certain pieces of it, and I'll take further direction from there. So I guess my time is up. If there's any questions, I would take them now. I just wanted to come and explain that October 1st, our user fees would be posted on our website, and we would be expanding the program further.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Council, before I ask for any questions, can I get someone to move to receive? Councillor Kim, second by Councillor Thompson. Any questions for the Deputy Chief? Seeing none. Deputy Chief, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Call the vote. Wendy? Oh, sorry, Councillor Gaertner. Thank you. That carries. Council, we have no delegations. Consent agenda. Anyone have any questions on those? Someone like to move approval of 6.1 to 6.6? Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys. Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner? Councillor Gaertner? Councillor Gaertner, can you hear me?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I had to leave the meeting. Yes?
Thank you. That's no problem. That carries. Standing committee reports. Any questions? Councillor Gilliland?
Oh, I just wanted to pull a couple things.
Sure.
7.12,
7.1.2,
yes, and 7.2.3.
7.2.3.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you bringing something new?
Perhaps. I'm just trying to pull up. I need to question something to Mr. Downey.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, could I get a motion to approve all other items minus 7.1.2, 7.2.3? Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Kim. Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed 7.2.3, but I'll bring that up in new business.
Did you say, Councillor Gaertner, did you say 7.2.3?
Yes, am I still able to pull that?
That one was pulled.
Pardon me?
That one was pulled.
Oh, great, thanks.
Okay, so can I get your vote on the rest of them? Yes, thank you. That carries. So we'll move to items requiring discussion. We'll start with 7.1.2, a review of urban forest study and associate forestry policies. Councillor Gilliland, you pulled this?
Apologies, I have to go back and click in and get the report to actually comment. Just takes me a minute. Perfect.
Would you like to move the recommendation?
I gotta go back 1 second. Yeah, I'd like to just the recommendation on the floor, but I just wanted to ask Mr. Downey a question whether
That's
or not
fine, but
needed to.
I need someone to move it and someone to second it.
Okay, so
Move it. Second, Councillor Humphreys. Go ahead, Councillor Gilliland. Floor is yours.
thank you. Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, I just had a question about the tree inventory that we had discussed last time about the accountability as to when that will come to fruition. And I think you and I had a conversation offline that was something that was feasible, and I just wanted to kind of ask you for your opinion on whether or not that 2022 was something that we could bring forward to council after it was perhaps part of the budget. If you can kind of confirm that with me, that would be great.
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Mayor, yes, so Councillor Gilliland and I were speaking this evening, and I believe it's in the budget. I just wasn't quite sure which year it was, whether it was 2021, 2022, but we have consulting dollars for a study for the U4 study, or the next phase of the U4 study, in combination or in concert with the region. So yes, we are moving forward with that, with council approval, of course.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. Okay, so with that, if it's already coming to the budget, I mean, is it necessary for me to add an amendment at the bottom to say report back to council in 2022 with the report with the tree inventory, or should we wait to the budget then at that point and then, okay, that's what I wanted to make clear because I wasn't really quite sure. Right, that was really the only question I had. I wanted to make sure there was accountability and it was clear, and that we'll get that inventory in a good, timely fashion. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? I will call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gaertner?
I vote yes.
Thank you. That carries. 7.2.3, downtown parking update, Library Square Precinct. Councillor Gilliland, you pulled this one as well.
Thank you. Just a general question.
Okay. I can get you to move.
Yes. Just
Move the recommendation?
Yep.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Thompson. Go ahead, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I'm just reviewing what we had kind of spoken about, GC, about possibly reaching out to some business members to include on the committee working group, and I just wanted to ensure that that was part of the terms. Did we agree to including them? Was that something that we passed, or was it just kind of discussed?
I think it was discussed, and I think staff took that into consideration. They would be doing that. I don't think we needed anything formal on it on the books, but I think Mr. Waters is on this. Mr. Waters, are you there?
Asked the question, and our response was that given the type of information being discussed, it may not be appropriate to have members sitting on a full-time basis, but we would bring them in as appropriate.
Councillor?
If you could just help me understand when you say bring them in as appropriate. I have spoken to some business owners in the area who have expressed interest in giving some feedback, and I just kind of want to understand how to communicate that to them, because they have a very vested interest in giving some of their thoughts about this feasibility study on the parking.
Mr. Waters?
Where there is an item discussed regarding the town buying property, for instance, which is confidential, we would not bring them in. But if there's discussions around, hours for parking, locations for parking, we would definitely bring them in for a conversation as part of the working group.
Councillor?
So any kind of meeting that you would have that would not be considered a confidential conversation for whatever those reasons are, you would bring in business owners. So how would you reach out to them, and how would you let them know that this was an available podium for them to give feedback?
Mr. Waters?
Through Mr. Mayor, we are developing a map, two maps, one for the residents that live within a certain distance of Library Square, and also using the BIA business boundaries. We are collecting information to provide notice of parking for those businesses, and we'll work through the BIA when we require participation on the working group.
Councillor?
I mean, I understand where you're going through the BIA, but some people may feel they would want to deal directly with the town and be a proactive member. Is that something that we could offer to business owners there without having to rely on the BIA?
Mr. Waters?
Definitely, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the best approach is we'll discuss this at our next working group and come up with an approach or methodology to bring in those that are not part of the BIA into a working group meeting when required, and I can report back on how that approach is developed.
Councillor?
When you say not part of the BIA, do you mean the homes that are not in that specific map area, or do you mean who are not on the board?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I'm referring to is businesses that are not represented by the BIA or may not be sitting on the board of directors of the BIA. I think we'll have a conversation with the BIA and then determine how they want to be represented, and then we will determine an approach for dealing with businesses that are not part of the BIA.
Councillor?
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and maybe this is a conversation offline, but I would like to see it open to businesses, whether they're part of the BIA district or not, so they have the opportunity individually to approach the town and be an active member, because perhaps maybe they are not actively engaged with the BIA for whatever reasons, and I just would not want to centralize it to one source representing them if that is not the way that the channel that they want to go through. So I would like to see that open podium for everybody in that area without that one channel. So is that something we can discuss later, and that would be consideration for the working group?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. Yes, I hear the councillor loud and clear. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and just to Councillor Gilliland's point, I don't believe all businesses are part of the BIA downtown. So I'd like to have assurances as well that all downtown core businesses have their say in this situation. So I appreciate Mr. Waters' response. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gaertner want to speak? I'll go Councillor Gaertner first and then Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gaertner, go ahead.
Thank you. On this report, the indexes have the parking availability, and it goes through all of the different areas and what's available and where. But this is a parking study that's 2 years old now, pre-approving the theater and the addition to the library. So I wasn't clear. I did ask this question last week, but it's not clear to me, because we are presenting the figures that are 2 years old to the public and to council. So was the requirements for parking spaces for the theater and the addition to the library, is it anywhere here? Do we know what extra influence those are going to have on our parking need?
Thank you, Councillor. And I think Ms. McDougall answered this last time, so I'm going to ask Ms. McDougall if she can answer it this time.
Thank you very much. And to Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Gaertner, the study was updated from 2 years ago. BA study did consider the additional spaces. The report identifies that and speaks to the theater space and the additional multi-purpose spaces in the library. And those were included in their numbers. So based on that analysis, this is the summary of what they're presenting. So the latest expansion of the project was included in the latest review.
Councillor
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Thank you. From reading the report, though, they're only talking about, well, of course, because it was 2 years ago, they're only talking about what they knew at the time. So I think if we're presenting this report, it needs to have the updated figures. I don't believe they're included in the figures in the index. Those are the old figures.
Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually just trying to find the page numbers for you. Maybe Mr. Waters might have it at his fingertips, so just one. The index at the back under the options, when it talks about the spaces, it does identify in the tables about the library, schoolhouse, and expansion. So on page 28 of 56 of the report, as an example, it speaks to the proposed library multipurpose rooms and the proposed theater. Those are what I believe the components you're speaking of in relation to additional, so they were incorporated in the analysis. So the latest BA report does consider these spaces in their analysis.
Councillor?
Thank you. And the library. So the index that we're seeing, the attachment that we're seeing to this report is different from the original one that was done. This has already been updated.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not about the report, it's just e-scribe, and just before you called the vote, on our agenda, I only come up with 3 of the 5 or 6 points that are on the screen. I don't know if everyone else is like that or not. As long as when it comes to vote, what's on the screen is what we're voting for as opposed to what's in the agenda on e-scribe. Is it just me that has?
I think, and Councillor, I think sometimes what happens is you have to restart it and it comes back up. I've had that problem at the regional one as well, where it just kind of shows like half of it.
All I'm saying, as long as when we're voting,
Yeah, what we're voting for is what's on the screen here.
That's fine.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
I vote no.
Thank you. That carries. Okay. 8.1, Explore Aurora campaign funding request. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Kim. Oh, we're having a presentation as well? Oh, okay. Before I get that, Councillor Kim, we'll do our presentation. Sandra Ferry from the Aurora Chamber of Commerce is here to give a quick presentation. Absolutely.
Phase 2 of the Explore Aurora campaign. I will share my presentation. The Explore Aurora campaign was initiated through the Aurora Business Continuity Task Force, and Phase 1 was sponsored by Magna, Treasure Hill, and Enbridge. The goal of the campaign was to support local businesses by spotlighting them to consumers through social media. The goal of Phase 2 is to continue the positive shop local, support local momentum by continuing to spotlight local businesses through social media, and to build a communication channel using e-newsletters, digital magazines, etc., directed at the business to consumer and business to business market segments. So let's recap Phase 1. Sorry, I'll put that on big screen. There we go, that's easier. As we began the campaign, there was a realization that we needed more than just social media. We needed a place where consumers could click for more information on local businesses and to see other local Aurora business offerings. That's where the Explore Aurora campaign website became part of the plan. The goal of the website was threefold: to act as an anchor for all social media campaigns, and to serve as a central place for sample social media posts for businesses who were struggling to communicate their safety protocols and to their customers, and bring consumer and business community together through the Local Hero campaign. As you can see through these numbers on the screen, we had very good reach with the campaign through Facebook. This was just the last week of the campaign, which ended on August 31st. We had 11,300 reach through the Facebook campaigns, 16,000 impressions on Instagram. We have more than 200 businesses listed on the website, and we had 522 page views in 1 week. As we look at Phase 2, there are 3 main goals for the Phase 2 campaign. to pivot the Explore Aurora website into a strictly consumer site, an extension of the Explore Aurora guide that the town and the chamber partnered on last year. This means that we would redesign the site, remove the business supports, which would delineate the difference between the Explore Aurora website as being strictly the consumer-facing site, and we would continue to use the Aurora Chamber website for business supports. We'd want to develop a plan to gather emails, consumer emails, and find ways to interact with consumers on a self-serve basis through the website. And we'd like to maintain the social media strategy and implementation plan that continues to strengthen our reach in the consumer marketplace. So as we look to the future, the redesign of the website will ensure that there is functionality in place that can be expanded to include sections such as special offers, things to do, plan your weekend, a calendar of local events, and that businesses would have the capability of uploading and changing their listings without having to go through a manual process. We'd be able to add special offers, events, and so on. And we'd be looking at doing things like blogs, producing magazines on site that people could self-serve themselves to. So as we look at the requirements, we'd be looking to continue to work with Watershed Marketing, who were the leads on the social media campaign. And we would work with Addison Marketing Solutions, who donated the platform for the website that has since become Explore Aurora. That's pretty much all I wanted to say. There are the financials, which I think you've had a chance to review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Sandra. First, what I'll do is if I can get a motion to receive the presentation and move the recommendations of the report. Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gilliland, any questions to Sandra Ferry or to the report? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this is to, but just to give me a sense of a timeline. It was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that there was some urgency to this. Can someone give me a sense of what the urgency is? If this is a phase in a Explore Aurora campaign, would we not have known this some time ago so we could have gotten on a GC as opposed to coming straight to council with a request for funds?
Sandra, did you want to answer that? To the urgency?
Just in the sense of the campaign on August 31st, there is momentum that you build as you, through social media, through using the website, and through the marketing campaign that's been happening. So in effect, there hasn't been much happening since August 31st, so we've lost a little bit of momentum. I've actually hired somebody part-time just to continue the postings for the next few weeks through the chamber, just because I didn't want all of the momentum to be lost.
And I'll add, Councillor Gallo, this also needed to go to the Economic Development Board, which was at the end of the month, just before this council meeting. So there was the timing just didn't work out to get it in front of Economic Development Board and then get to a GC. Then we wouldn't be coming to a GC till next month, and then it wouldn't be ratified till the end of October, which would, at the end of the day, we're looking at our local shops that are struggling, and this is a way we're trying to support them, and that would have been another month that they wouldn't have been supported by the chamber or by the town.
Thank you. So through you or to you, was this phase 2 a planned part of the Explore Aurora campaign, or have we shifted? Was there a phase 2 and it looked different, and now this phase 2 has shifted because of everything that's going on?
Sandra?
I think we wondered about whether there would be a phase 2, and it all depended on how long that the pandemic lasted. We know now, though, that it's going to be long-standing, and really we just didn't want to leave our businesses struggling. So we put together the phase 2 plan, thought about redesigning it and continuing on with the Explore Aurora that the town and the chamber have been partnering on already. So this is just an opportunity for us to move to digital with that magazine format that we did last year, to set us up for the future of having both print and digital. And it's a way to support our businesses through social media at a time when they really need it. So yeah, we had talked about a phase 2, but we really didn't know just how long-standing it was going to be.
Councillor?
Thank you, and through you to Sandra, is there some type of matrix that we can point to that this has been effective in the past and continuing along this, that our businesses will get a benefit?
Sandra?
I think what we can point to are just this, that a lot of our businesses are very grateful for what we're doing. The metrics that I just showed on screen show that we are getting engagement from the consumer market, and we need to still build that if we want to have a really strong impact on the economy in town. So yes, I think we do hear that there is very positive feedback on Explore Aurora. Our businesses are grateful. It includes all businesses, not just chamber businesses, and the feedback has been very positive.
Councillor?
Thank you. I'll be supporting this, but I think we should be getting a report back on some type of matrix that it was successful. I just don't like, well, first of all, I don't like these things coming straight in without a lot of time to understand it. I hate things that come straight to council, especially if we're asking for money. But if we do this, we need to have some type of report back saying this was the success of it. We spent $12,000 and this is what we got out of it. And I don't know if that's part of the resolution. If it isn't, I think it should be, and I'm happy to add that once everyone else speaks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Sandra Ferry. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for all your initiative that you've put forth with all your efforts. I was part of a lot of your Zoom calls during this pandemic, and I know you've done a fantastic job making sure that the business community was very well informed with all the funding that was available and the supports that were in place, and I thank you for that. I have been following some of the Explore Aurora initiative, and I found it's been very helpful. Question to you is, did you accept some funding from the BIA that was left over in that from their pot because they weren't able to utilize it due to COVID and apply that to the initiative?
Sandra?
There were some other expenses that came up that they had to deal with, so I'm not sure whether there will be money coming, but I haven't had that conversation with the BIA. And if I could just also address Councillor Gallo's question about matrices. In phase one, we did have a matrix around saving more businesses than the national average in Aurora. That's still our hope, and we can definitely come up with some numbers, but we won't have those numbers until pretty much we're out of the pandemic and we know where we land.
Thank you. I didn't hear the very first thing you had said. I don't know why if it cut out, but you're saying you did not receive any funding from the BIA surplus to help fund this initiative then?
No.
Okay. Okay. It wasn't confirmed. I didn't know. So thank you very much. As far as Explore Aurora videos and such, are you planning on utilizing the video platform model that you have been using now on your social media platforms to profile businesses, and how are you choosing to do that?
Sandra?
So yes, so we profile businesses that are registered on Explore Aurora, so we will need to continue the campaign to get businesses on Explore Aurora. That's the first step. And then we do the watershed marketing. We'll create a plan that looks at supporting all the businesses that are registered on Explore Aurora. And it will be through spotlights. We'll also be doing some consumer email sign-up campaigns to try and get some emails for consumers, or get consumers going to the website to self-serve themselves on special offers, magazines, and things like that we'll have to offer on the website.
Thank you. And I support the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, but I just want to make clear, if there is a business who currently is not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, they can register to be a part of the Explore Aurora initiative, correct?
100%, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, some of my questions have been answered. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this initiative forward. Our businesses need all the help they can get. And it was brought up during Economic Development Board, and they're very much in support of this. And one of the things that I was appreciative of, it's not just chamber members, which is important. It's all businesses can participate and be part of this, so it's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Ms. Ferry, for presenting this evening. Just a quick question with regards to the differences between the previous print versions and the desire to go online. There is a reference within the report that speaks to allowing for all businesses, regardless of whether they're a chamber member or not, to participate in the online. It kind of implies that by going online, you'll be able to promote more businesses than in the past. Is that correct?
Sandra? Councillor?
Do you have a sense of, sorry, through you to Ms. Ferry, do you have a sense of how many more businesses, or do you have a target or goal of how much more of a reach you would like to see?
Ms. Ferry?
I would like to see all of our businesses registered on Explore Aurora, and for them all to have the opportunity to be promoted through our social media. It really does depend on the campaign that we do. We are working hard, and I know Watershed has worked hard. They've gone out to see a lot of businesses, as we have, and told them about it. We have a print piece that will now be dropped off to different businesses saying that they should be a part of Explore Aurora. And I think as we ramp the campaign up again, we'll see more businesses participate. That's my guess. Do I have a reach? I don't. I mean, as I say, I would love to see all businesses supported.
Councillor?
Thank you. I think we all echo that statement. I just want to get a sense of what sort of measurables, but hopefully the reaction is exceedingly positive, and you do reach that number of everybody. But look forward to hearing a report back at some point on the success of the program. Thank you.
Councillor Gaertner? Councillor Gaertner, are you there?
You've helped him to be so successful in that. Thank you. But I also think that Councillor Gallo and Councillor Thompson's point is valid, and I would certainly like to second that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Gaertner. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Ferry, for presenting tonight. And as part of this Small Business Continuity Task Force, from the April to midsummer period, we asked some of the same questions when we were doing phase one, and we put out an RFP, and Watershed Marketing won the tender, and certainly I think all of us on the task force was impressed with Watershed Marketing, and so I have no doubt in terms of the quality of phase two, given the work that I saw on Watershed Marketing in phase one. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Ferry, can you tell me the role of Addison Marketing? How they're going to be, what their role is going to be compared to Watershed in phase two?
Ms. Ferry?
So Watershed is a marketing company. They're not a website specialty company. Addison provided the platform that we used for exploreaurora.ca free of charge to Watershed Marketing for their use. They put together the website, but I do think that there are some modifications that need to be made that you need a specialty website company to do. We want to set ourselves up for the future so that we're able to add things like blogs and magazines and other components to it, a calendar of events, and I think you want a specialty website company to do that.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I know this is a tough time, and we're always asking for performance metrics, and just to make sure that the plan's on track, and the project and the funding amount is doing what it's supposed to do. And I understand in this tough environment, how do you measure success other than at a very high level? But I do know from phase one, just from hearing from some of the impacted businesses, phase one, I believe was a success. And if we can have a delineated I know the word matrix was brought up, something to, just give us some comfort that phase 2 is as successful as phase 1 was. That'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. And Ms. Ferry, I just wanted to add, I know during the phase 1 and during our time working through the continuity task force, you were providing the task force and all the members project status updates on a weekly basis. And I'm just wondering if something like that can continue and be provided to at least council, and then maybe at during an end of a month report that could kind of come as a memo to council. And if we can do that, I think that would satisfy something that Councillor Gallo and Councillor Gaertner mentioned, to provide what the performance and how this is phase 2 is actually rolling out and how it is performing and helping our local businesses. If that's something that we can continue, that would be great.
That is the plan. So she provided weekly updates about the social media campaign. I would see that continuing, and I can certainly provide updates on how the website's being developed and what we're doing there.
So, Council, I will make sure that we get those reports on a memo on a monthly basis, if that's... Councillor Gallo?
And that's great. I see that staff have put in a proposed amendment. I'd like to add that to the resolution.
Sure, go ahead.
It says the Aurora Chamber of Commerce report back to council regarding the success of the Explore Aurora marketing campaign.
Second. Councillor Thompson? Any comments on that? Call a vote on the amendment. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Any other comments or questions? I will call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Thank you, Ms. Ferry. Council will move to motions. 9.1, Councillor Kim regarding sidewalk installation policy.
And as is, please.
Move as is. Thank you. Someone like to second that? Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We currently have, several policies and programs that promote sidewalks as part of a safe and community-friendly part of neighborhoods. These policies include the sidewalk installation policy, the active and safe routes to school program, and the school travel planning policy. The sidewalk policy, as we all know, allows for sidewalks to be constructed when a road comes up for repair and maintenance in our town's 10-year R&R plan. As we all have experienced over the years, whenever a sidewalk is scheduled, it comes to council and takes up an inordinate amount of council time. This is an important issue and certainly deserves discussion, but given that the town has policies in place that promotes the construction of sidewalks, let's follow our town policy and not have the need to come back to council each time. As a result, my motion is to have staff revisit and review the sidewalk policy, including the option to give delegated authority to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Through Mr. Mayor, and I support the motion. I just have a good question through Mr. Mayor to, would it be Mr. Waters? Like right now with our policy, sidewalks are implemented, period. That's the approach, right? I just want to confirm. That's our sidewalk policy. Any new road construction where there's an opportunity to put a sidewalk in, it gets put in. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters, what's our existing policy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. Unless there is not one that is not at the moment that's there, then we have to go back and do the consultation and determine if the residents would like to have it. If it's not currently there at the moment.
Okay,
Councillor?
so to you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I know that we have public consultations and so on, but I thought our approach was always to place the sidewalk. So I guess this is where the motion becomes very clear that staff should pursue putting in sidewalks regardless, and then if residents always have an option to come to council if they have some concerns or whatever. So this just clarifies, or what Councillor Kim, what you're asking is that staff really look at this again and really truly adhere to this policy no matter what the situation is, because it is a pure, it's just what we encourage, that sidewalks are installed throughout our community regardless of people wanting them or not, right? Just wanted to clarify.
Councillor Kim?
Yes. My hope is that staff will have, after their review is completed, that they will be able to have delegated authority to construct the sidewalks according to the schedule without coming to us. The point of the reviewing the policy is to ensure that staff ascertains that there are no cracks in the policy such that there might be a need to come to council if necessary. So I just want to give them an opportunity to have a thorough review of the policy so that we can carte blanche give them delegated authority. And if there are some cracks in there where it warrants coming, let us know about it.
Councillor? Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I'm certainly supportive of the idea to review the policy and report back to us. The only thing I'm not necessarily comfortable with is the timelines associated with this. So through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, it asks you to come back before the end of October 2020. Does that give you sufficient time to do the thorough review and make the necessary recommendations?
Mr. Waters?
Doesn't provide enough timing. I think there was a bit of lag from when the time the resolution or the motion was drafted and then when it appeared in front of us today. So I would look towards bringing a report forward, excuse me, in the first quarter of next year.
Councillor?
So by first quarter, you mean January to March?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. As I said, I'm certainly supportive of the motion itself, but I think that if we're going to do it, then give staff the appropriate amount of time to review, make the recommendations, and bring it forward to council. So I'll leave it to the mover, but I would like to see the timelines amended.
Thank you. How about Councillor Gilliland first time?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Gilliland. I did have Councillor Gaertner on, so.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll go to Councillor Gaertner first.
Yep.
Councillor Gaertner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm certainly supportive of reviewing all of our policies that might be a little bit older, and this one is getting a little bit older. But I'm also in support of residents being able to come to council if they don't want a sidewalk. It was, the Kitimat area was pretty labor intensive and time consuming and messy. But generally it works a lot better than that. And certainly in the Regency Acres area, we had some streets that did not want sidewalks, and they came and, we agreed with what they wanted to see for their area, and we also saved some money in the process. So I wouldn't like to, I think council needs to be aware of where the sidewalks are going. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It just has to be a listing, so that if we do get emails from residents, we're aware of them. And You know, I guess sidewalks are democracy in action. I'm not against residents being able to voice their opinions to us.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Gaertner kind of echoed exactly what I was just thinking, is that hopefully the intent is not to deter the general public the opportunity to voice their opinion should they want to oppose a sidewalk, especially if it's before they're scheduled of reconstruction. If it does come up for construction, I thought that there was already delegated authority, but I guess that's new that they don't if it's under construction. I guess the intent, Councillor Kim, is that is it to eliminate the option of opposing the sidewalk, or is that the objective here, to just kind of go ahead with it without having to have any kind of opposition to the idea of that?
Councillor Kim.
The sidewalk?
The point of this motion is to move the business of the town forward. Now, I am totally for all residents. You know, I'm a resident that if you have an opinion on something, you voice them. But if we agreed, and the proxy of the day agreed on a sidewalk policy, you have a policy, you follow the policy. So if we don't like the policy, then let's get rid of it. I see no reason to have a sidewalk policy if we're going to debate the construction of a policy that we have been using for several years. So you know what, if we want to have multiple meetings talking about a sidewalk, and if that's the desire of council, then who am I to challenge the balance of council? But my point is, either get rid of the policy or keep the policy, review it, and if we're going to keep it, let's follow it. If we're going to listen to every single item that a resident has, from a ladder going from a neighbor's yard going to their own yard to fix something, or you know, there are places for that. And if we want to hear everything, you know, we can probably sit here and have multiple meetings a week. So, you know, we are proxies, and that's what we get voted in for. And I would imagine that when the sidewalk policy came into play in 2013 or so, that the times of the day and the residents of the day supported that policy, and that's why it's in there. So now because of what's happened the last couple of years, or last few years, now let's revisit it, and if it's still warrant keeping it, let's keep it and follow it. If not, then let's disperse with it and not follow it. And we'll have these hour-long multiple meetings every year about a sidewalk somewhere. Councillor?
Thank you. Well, certainly having a revision and a look at the policy, I'm certainly not opposed to. I believe in the situation at Kitimat, the scheduling of that sidewalk wasn't until much later, so I think they warranted a discussion since it wasn't scheduled. I'm open to the idea of coming back with that policy, but I don't know how much conversation and sidewalk talk was brought to council when the policy was first written in 2013. So far, we've only had 2 in the 2 years I've been here, so I certainly don't know if that's something that we're going to continue on doing, but I understand your point. But I'll be interested to see what staff comes back with recommendations, so long as, in my opinion, that you know, the residents still have the right to come back and rally and voice their opinion, and we can decide whether or not to go forward with a sidewalk for whatever unforeseen circumstances. I think that in both cases they were unforeseen circumstances, and we listened to it and we had 2 different outcomes. So I mean, I'll vote in favor, but because there's really nothing in concrete that we're voting for other than a report back with consideration, and I'll be eager to hear what they have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
I share much of what was said. If I understand correctly, the purpose of this, which I don't agree with, is to streamline the process to the point where we don't have, I think, the hour-long discussion and the public discussion and public input. That part I won't be if it gets to that point, once this report comes to council and that's part of it, that's not something that I would be supporting. While tedious, while takes a lot of time, it's part of this process, and I believe that's why I was elected, to hear the public's view, particularly when it affects them directly. So I'm happy to move this forward. I'm curious to see what comes out of it. If there's some efficiencies there, I have no problems with that. But if it's in any way removing the public's ability to come to us and delegate and express their opinions, I won't be in support of that.
Thank you. Councillor Gaertner, second time.
I think I was the only one who was here for that discussion, so it possibly can't be verified, but it used to be that we didn't provide any sidewalks and people had to come to council to petition for sidewalk, and there were parameters around that. They had to have X number of people on their street. I'm not sure, perhaps Mr. Downey will look at that, but my understanding was that we were just flipping the policy and we were going to put sidewalks, and if somebody didn't want a sidewalk, they could come to council with X number of signatures, speaking to a different idea. So, but that isn't in the policy. So maybe there need to be some parameters in the policy, so that we don't get, the minimum number of, so we don't, if there's 100 residents, we don't get 10 petitioning us. There has to be a feeling on the street or in the area that this is what they want, and that has to be shown by signatures on a petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to elaborate, and thank you, Councillor Gaertner, for bringing that forward. And I think it would be good when the report comes back if we do get a bit of history, because when I initially thought of through all these last several years about the sidewalk policy, it was because we wanted to be a very active community, active transportation. So I thought this was a policy to support that. But if we're just flipping because of what Councillor Gaertner believes, it'd be great for us to have a little bit of history about the report, why we're where we are, and that'll help us make a decision when the report comes back. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Kim, you want to finish up?
Yes. I'm fine with the Councillor Thompson's amendment in terms of the timeline to first quarter of next year. As Mr. Waters stated, that when I had initial discussions with staff, it took place in midsummer, and end of October was the timeline that staff gave me. So I thought that was a realistic goal. This report came, much later than anticipated, and hence, if staff is more comfortable with Q1, I'm fine with that. And I just want to leave council with some thought. And this might be for when the report comes back, but there is it's not a municipal policy necessarily, but there is guidelines or safety guidelines policy for illumination of streetlights. Some residents like bright lights for safety purposes. Some residents like dim lights because they don't want to wake up their child, or they can't sleep properly because the lights are too bright. But there's a minimum code level for lights for safety purposes. I'm wondering how much different is it for sidewalk when for safety, for transportation, and the fluidity from one neighborhood to another. How is this that much different? We don't go on debate about the lumens of streetlights. So, just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Was everyone, seconder was Councillor Humphreys or Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson, you're okay with that? Friendly amendment, everyone? Change the date? Okay. Change that date. While we wait for the date to be changed on the screen, I'll just say that I'll be in favor. I think it's always good for us to look at our policies, and I'll save my comments for when we get that report and we can dig deeper into what we intend on doing as we move forward. Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner? Yes. Thank you. That carries. 9.2, Councillor Gallo, property acquisition, Library Square.
As presented.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Gilliland? Go ahead, Councillor Gallo. Where's yours?
Thank you. I'll be pretty quick. It's self-explanatory, I think. As we all know, we go into closed session for a variety of reasons, in this case, to discuss property purchase, and rightfully so, as we did. I think it's important to, especially with these types of dollars, that we let the public know the details of the purchase and the reports that were before us that helped us make our decision. And that's what I'm trying to do with this resolution. I did confirm, because it does say in the resolution that it's subject to basically the consultants being okay to release, and I did confirm with staff that and I'll read it. Staff have confirmed that ex-consultant is fine with the report being released publicly. Should council motion do so, we would need to apply some redactions to the report, but it could be posted on Library Square pages as your motion directs. So I just have two quick questions. First off, should it pass through you, Mr. Mayor, when could these reports be on the Library Square page?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not aware of the timing. I believe we have a draft of the redacted documents that would just have to be finally reviewed. So I think the turnaround would be fairly quick before we could release the redacted versions.
Councillor?
Thank you. And the second, regarding the redacted, what areas would be redacted and for what purpose?
Mr. CEO? Unless you want me to ask Ms. Desario?
Probably ask the clerk to weigh on this, as he's our person who looks after that, the information flow. But basically, information that identifies individuals, that discloses taxpayer information. There's a standard list of things that we are not to disclose, except possibly through a formal FOI process where it can be properly vetted and so on.
Mr. Clerk, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The CAO covered it perfectly. All I would say is that we have a legal obligation to redact the information in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Councillor?
Thank you. And just through you to the clerk, could you just confirm that the consultants were okay with releasing their reports?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Councillor?
That's it. I just I think this is a good thing, and that will be transparent and let the public know the details around a $7.5 million purchase.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. While I agree with the intent of the motion to provide transparency to the residents, I am concerned about the timing of doing it so now. As we all know, we are actively trying to market the property and work with developers on the future development of that corner. I think that in releasing all of that information now, there is the potential of putting the town at a disadvantage. And so while I believe that transparency is important, you also have to balance transparency with confidentiality and protecting the best interests of the town. And we've seen these motions in the past. We dealt with it in the first term with regards to Bulk Barn and the work that the town did with them on those lands. We've seen them in the past with regards to conversations around Niagara College, the Armory, and etc. I think there's a time and place for it. I'm happy to release all the information at the appropriate time. I don't feel that it is now while we are still actively trying to market the property. I think when all is said and done and all information is available, including the final resolution of the property with regards to what's going to be done with it, then I think that then that's great. That's a perfect time to provide that information to the public so they see the complete picture. And so while I support the intent of it, I don't feel that today is the right time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to our solicitor. Ms. Del Serio, can you provide us your perspective on this motion and this request, please?
Ms. Desario?
I would have to, this may not be the right time, as Councillor Thompson says, to release this information. There may be items in the reports that could potentially prejudice the town and any strategies or negotiations that it's looking for in the future. But if it is something that council does want to do, then as the clerk and the CAO suggested, it would have to be certain parts of the reports would have to be redacted.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mrs. Del Serio. You know, the Municipal Act, you know, that's what we follow, and it states in section 239, meetings open to public, except as provided in the section, all meetings shall be open to the public. Exceptions, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is. Following that, the various exemptions are listed. The idea is that some subject matters are better left or must be left behind closed doors, especially in situations where harm can be done or where the municipality and therefore the taxpayers would be put at a disadvantage. You know, clearly, you know, from my perspective, taxpayers and the municipality would be put at a disadvantage, and it's not beneficial for us to release the information right now. You know, we've, you know, last term, you know, I put out a motion to have all land transactions be put on our public website, and that's been done, and that continues to be done, and as this transaction as well. But given that there is, you know, a phase 2 now, or phase 3, whatever we want to call it in Library Square, you know, it does seem like this is sensitive information that we certainly do not want to let out, given that we are still you know, negotiating with you know, future partners to develop the property. And so I don't see the I don't think it's for the public benefit to have this information disclosed right now. It's like we're going to benefit Peter for the sake of Mary, or we're going to benefit this at the expense of shooting off our own toe, if that's the right analogy. And, you know, if we're going to release reports, you know, I'm just not for releasing reports that are that were originated in closed session and cherry picking which items that can be disclosed. I mean, we have whether it be land transactions that failed. Even those failed transactions are sensitive to potential stakeholders. You know, we've had things before the courts that are outstanding, or not outstanding, that are sensitive, that should not be out there. There are matters about certain individuals inside the corporation or outside the corporation. So do we start cherry picking and start thinking about, yeah, you know, it's for transparency and disclosure purposes, you know, the public needs to know this. I'm sure we can find all sorts of reasons to want to disclose various reports and items discussed in closed session. So maybe that's something that we discuss in the future. But going retroactive, I'm not for it. And if we want to have an active discussion on that, we'll have that discussion. But I'm not for going retroactive and saying, hey, this item here, let's show that to the public in the name of transparency and disclosure. And obviously I am for transparency and disclosure, but I don't believe this is the right time for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gaertner.
Mr. Mayor, just need some clarification. Is the intent for us to resell this land?
Well,
I mean,
Councillor, I don't know if you really want to get into that. There's
well, I don't know.
Tons of options that we could be looking at in regards to that property.
Well, that certainly wasn't the public statement. We are buying this land to make Library Square even better and looking for a partner to work with. And, these land sales or acquisitions do need to go into closed session under the Municipal Act regulations. But once that's been done, we release the information, and we release the information, except for Bulk Barn, we release the information because actually it's the public's money that has been spent. So the deal is closed and finalized, and it is the right time to release that information to the public. I don't want the public to say that we're holding the information back for some reason. It's completely appropriate to do this now. And certainly I don't think the intent of anybody is to go back and look through our past closed session motions and, retroactively maybe make them public. But this is a clear established process. Once the land deal is done, then there's no longer any need for it to be enclosed. So I completely support Councillor Gallo's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gallo in a moment. I never thought about waiting till the project is done. I do hear that it is a good point when we are in the middle of a project to where we could potentially be looking for a partner. I don't know if the information from my knowledge of this closed session would make that much big of a difference in moving forward, but Councillor Thompson does make a good point, but I just want to hear from you a little bit about your feedback on some of those comments.
Councillor, I think Councillor Gallo will probably speak a second time, but sure. Councillor Gallo, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. My comments are simple, that unless my memory is off, clearly people around this table know information that I'm not aware of. And I have no idea what harm the information that's in there could be to the corporation. You'd think the solicitor would have been far more direct. We know the purchase price. That's public. What else could there possibly be in there that could harm the corporation? I think we need to be specific if that's the case. The purchase price is out there. We've all read the information. It's valuable information that helped make a decision. I see nothing in there that could harm the corporation on any future deals that I am not aware of.
Councillor?
Hello? Thank you. Okay, that's kind of the answer. I think I thought you were going to say through Mr. Mayor to, I guess, the Ms. DeSario. I think you had mentioned in your comment that if this was to pass, any names or anything that would be considered private would be redacted and in an appropriate way. Can you confirm that?
Ms. DeSario?
Those would definitely be redacted.
Councillor?
Thank you. And in your opinion, because I know this question was asked, releasing this information, obviously the protection of any individuals and that kind of privacy definitely won't be compromised with any business moving forward with this project in relation to this this particular closed session ordeal of the sale of the property, correct?
Ms. Desario?
In respect to the information that's in there, that's considered personal information, that would all be redacted, so that would not jeopardize anything.
Thank you.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Serio. I fully agree with redacting the documents should our solicitor or our clerk feel that it will put the corporation in any harm. Is that not what the intent of redaction is, to make sure nothing is put public that would put the corporation in harm?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the town is required to redact only in accordance with MFIPA. So there are parameters such as personal information that we are required to redact. If there are any certain statements that may cause, that may show strategy that the town may be using in a future issue, that's not something that would necessarily be covered under MFIPA, that is something that could be redacted. So that we wouldn't be able to redact, because that's not considered personal information or other items that could be redacted under MFIPA.
Councillor?
So through you to Mr. Serio, is there any information, you've read it, that you feel, if released, could put the public in jeopardy by some matter? And if you could be specific as you can be.
Mr. Serio?
In reading, I did a cursory review, and there may be one or two sentences that could be taken out of context, and that may be what the concern is. I can't be terribly specific, because then that's the whole issue of why maybe it shouldn't be released.
Councillor?
You know, I just, it's very frustrating to hear this. I just get a sense that clearly I'm out of the loop because I'm not aware of negotiations, any of that. We spent $7.5+ million of the town's money, and they know zero about the details around that. And if I'm cherry picking, it may be, but I have no problem whatsoever to release anything that was in closed session that can be released. I have no problem with any of that. This particular one, because it's $7.5 million plus, and I believe the residents of the town of Aurora, it's their money, they need to know the details around this. Now, I've read the report. There's nothing in there that could cause harm to the corporation. You know, a sentence or two, let's remove them if that's the case. The purchase price is public. There's no hiding that. The details around the two reports should be public. And I don't understand the rationale behind this. Well, I think I do, but hopefully the public will see that as well.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. With regards to, statements we've all made after the acquisition of the property, I can't be, exact, but I mean, it was inferred by some, including myself, that the property was purchased with the intent of being able to control the fate of Library Square, so that we can ensure that whatever will get developed there will be complementary to Library Square and fit with the overall vision that we have for the area itself. And so there always was that intent, and whether it was said directly or indirectly, to work with the development community to end up with a product that we all can be proud of that complements Library Square. And so it was always the intent, even after we've purchased it, to say that we will work with somebody to see that property developed. Through you to Mrs. Desario. Ms. Desario, if we were to wait until the fate of that property is completed or resolved, and then release the information, is there a greater likelihood that we could release more of the contents and less redacted if we wait until the end?
Ms. Desario?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, possibly, but like I mentioned, certain things that can be redacted can only be done in accordance with MFIPA. So I guess, yeah, the answer would be yes, because then the items that we're trying to maybe not I'm sorry. Okay, so if we release now, all the information would be coming out because we can't redact if it's not in accordance with MFIPA. But in the future, the information, it would be the same what's redacted now versus what's redacted later. It's more just a question of what could potentially hurt us now versus what could potentially hurt us later.
Thank you.
Councillor?
Thank you. And again, through you to our CEO, Mr. Nadarozny. And Doug, I'm sure you've been listening to the conversation around the table. In your opinion, as our CAO, do you feel that the town's best interest would be better served if we waited until this process was completed rather than releasing all the information now?
Mr. CAO?
Mr. Mayor, in general, without knowing exactly, what is going to be the next step with this particular project, it's hard to know with certainty what may or may not prejudice a decision or a path that we may take. So, as a catch-all and as a sort of as a general, would it be better? I would say that until we take some more steps with the property and figure out which path we're going to follow in order to get it back to council and developed in a form that council is supportive of, there are advantages to not having all of the information necessarily out early.
Councillor?
Thank you. And, as I mentioned earlier, I think if the goal is to inform the public, then let's give them all of the information. As we've said, that this is not yet completed. This is phase one was us acquiring the property. Phase two is us being able to find a partner and develop it. And I think that at that point, then the public will have all of the information and can make their own assessment at that time whether or not this decision to acquire this property was right or wrong. And so again, I think based on the fact that there's a possibility to put the town at a disadvantage through this process, and that it may not be in our best interest, and I'd rather see us give all of the facts rather than just half the picture to the residents. I'd rather wait until we conclude this process before releasing all the information. I'm fine of going on record and saying, yes, we will, but not now, later.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the conversation around the table. Initially, I was for absolutely go ahead, let's disclose. There's really nothing to hide other than what I'm hearing is it may put us in a disadvantage with what we do want to do, which is to work with a potential partner to make this fit with the overall plan. And I would hate damaging that opportunity or even a little risk of that, because you're right, the taxpayers, it's $7.5 million, and this is something that's that we need to really plan well and not have anything jeopardize that. So I would love to ask, Councillor Gallagher would absolutely keep this forward, but can we release once that third piece is completed and we can go forward and release this detail and all of it, not having to pick and choose information that, that our solicitor mentioned. But for absolutely this needs to go out, it does, but perhaps when this piece of the area is completed or negotiations are complete on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim. Actually, sorry, Councillor Gaertner, second time, then Councillor Kim.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, let's say we do wait. could we at least put a timeline on it? What kind of timing do you have in mind? Does anyone at the table have in mind? Because if it's going to be just an indefinite date, I don't think that would be acceptable to the public. They might wait for 9 months or a year. I mean, can somebody, Mr. CEO, Mr. Mayor, can somebody, or somebody kind of give me an idea of how long we're going to think of waiting?
Mr. CEO, do you want to take a stab at that?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is no specific timeline in mind right now because we haven't brought any next steps forward to council in terms of what we would do to pursue a redevelopment of the site. Our efforts to date have been to get it into our hands, to get a system in place to manage our new tenants and get a sense of how the building operates. And we're also, we're moving forward to create a package that identifies the specifics of the asset and the specifics of the opportunity that we see from a Town Aurora perspective in support of Library Square and the other development plans for the downtown. So we haven't got a timeline yet for when we would take a next step, and B, we don't know when someone might respond to the opportunity and bring something else that we would be ultimately taking to council for consideration.
Councillor Gaertner?
Thank you. I don't think it would be respectful to either transparency or to the residents just to say, okay, if this takes 3 years, it'll take 3 years. I think we give it a year and then we put a limit on it. I mean, how long should the public be asked to wait? They'll understand perhaps some of the intricacies, but just having a never-ending wait, I don't think that would be acceptable. So I'd like to ask Councillor Gallo if he's interested in something like that.
Councillor Gallo?
I don't mind putting a time frame on it. Something tells me it'll be over 2 years from now before we hear anything.
Councillor?
2 years is a long time. Okay, so let's say we approved the proposal on August 20. Was it August 24th or 25th? Let's put that date on it, August 25th, 2022.
Is that an amendment?
I mean, I'd like to make the amendment. If someone wants to second it, that would be welcomed. That's a long period of time for the public to wait. It makes me uncomfortable, but I don't think the will of council would be to.
So, Councillor, I'm hearing from our clerk that it's contrary, but if you wanted to defer it to August 24th, and then we would have the discussion at that point.
Is there not a way that wording could be added through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Clerk, that doesn't
Mr.
make
Clerk?
it contrary? Because it's not, we wanted to release it. I don't think there's timing on it. Is there in this motion, or did I misread it? Does this motion say anything about timing?
No, it says to just release it.
Okay, so then I don't think it would be contrary to say release it on August 25th, 2022. We're just adding a bit of a tag on it.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councilor makes a good point that that doesn't take away from releasing the information. So council could defer it, then take it up again, and maybe it is an option, or a timeline could be attached to when the release of this information.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd at least like to put a timeline on this. Don't want to say we're deferring it. We do get quite a lot of flack for that. So let's make a decision.
So
but it's Councillor Gallo's motion, so if he would like to make the amendment, I would second it.
I'll come back to Councillor Gallo then. Councillor Kim, second time.
Thank you. To the original main motion, I applaud Councillor Gallo for the motion. I know the intent is good. Who doesn't want readily available information in a timely fashion? But I wonder, what's the rationale for wanting to disclose closed session items in the speed that he desires, which is right now. Whether if it's transparency and disclosure and you just want full information, whether it be today or 6 months or 12 months down the road, when we feel, or the staff feel, it's 100% more judicious to do so, why not wait? What is the point of disclosing now? What will change by disclosing the information today? Library Square is still going ahead. So I'm just wondering what the purpose and the urgency of it is right now. Frankly, personally, if all stakeholders in closed session items are okay with it, I'm open to having audio taped. I'm happy to have all our voices be transcripted. I'm fine with that. But based on the parameters that we're working with today, I don't feel comfortable with that. So if Councillor Gallo would like to share with us, what's the urgency of disclosing it today? I'd like to know, and maybe that may play a part in our decisions. And the other concern that I have is that when we give out redacted versions, there's always going to be somebody who says, okay, you've redacted so much that we don't know, it doesn't tell us anything. We could release every single closed session report from this term, previous return, and prior terms, but we can just redact all the sensitive information, and there will always be people who will complain about the lack of information and too much redacting. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That would be my concern of releasing redacted versions. So those are my comments, and right now I'm not convinced to support the motion at this time, unless I hear something different over the preceding evening.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well, I too agree that, I don't see the urgency. Do we need to provide transparency? Absolutely. We dealt with this last term as well, where a motion came in front of us and wanted one specific topic from closed session to be put out. And we said, yeah, no problem, we'll do that, but let's put out everything. Right? Why are we cherry picking? Right? This one specifically, we heard from our solicitor. We still have a lot of work to do on this property. We do so many things where we designate properties historic. We bought this property, and why do we do these things? We do them to put ourselves in a better position for the town, for our residents, for us to be able to do something better for the town. So we put ourselves in a better dealing position. We lose that if we just put it out. We just heard that. It's not the right time. Will we put it out? Will the public know every single detail? Absolutely. If I wasn't being stopped by confidentiality, I'd tell everyone exactly. I have no problem. And as Councillor Kim mentioned, record exactly what I say back there. What I say back there, I'll say it out here. And I think every single one of us. And we'll see that with the next motion. So at this time, I'm all for the transparency, but at this time, I'm not for us losing our upper hand when we're dealing and moving forward with the redevelopment of this property and ultimately the revitalization of our downtown core. If we want to hurt the revitalization of our downtown core, then let's go ahead and do that. But I'm not for that. to make sure, and that's what we're all here for, is to make sure that the town's best interests are upheld. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
No, sorry, yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. That's defeated, 6-1. Next motion, 9.3, Councillor Thompson, audio recordings of closed session meetings.
Thank you, Mayor Maracus. I'll read it out as is. Whereas the town of Aurora acknowledges our responsibility to provide good governance in an accountable and transparent manner, and whereas the closed session meetings and attendant proceedings of council are subject to investigation at any time should a member of the public feel it warranted, and whereas the accuracy of the records and or documentation kept in regards to the closed session meetings and proceedings of council is therefore vital, and whereas council only currently takes minutes, there is no verbatim, written or audio recorded of the closed session proceedings of council, and whereas the Ombudsman recommends that all municipalities make audio recordings or video recordings of all meetings, both open and closed, to ensure a thorough record, and whereas it provides a clear and accessible record for closed meeting investigators to review and assist in ensuring that officials do not stray from the legal requirements during closed session meetings, and whereas Council in 2015 approved an accountability and transparency policy with the purpose of ensuring openness, accountability, and transparency while protecting the best interests of the town. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that staff be directed to report back before the end of the year on the recommendation to have all future closed session meetings of council audio recorded, and be it further resolved that the report include recommended policies pertaining to security, limited access for investigation purposes only, and what protocols should be put in place for the retention and destruction of these records. Would somebody like to
Can I get a
second?
seconder? Councillor Kim. Councillor Thompson, continue. Sure, Councillor Gall. Point of order.
We begin. I made an error in the last vote. I meant to vote yes, and I pushed the wrong button. I want to make that abundantly clear and public that I pushed the wrong button.
Councillor Clerk, Mr. Clerk, is there anything that we can do as far as, or can we just make it noted in the record? Can we make it noted in the record? I'm sure we can. Councillor, we'll try to resolve it to make it noted. I don't want your vote to be misinformed, so we'll do something about that. Councillor Thompson, continue.
Thank you. Did somebody second it?
Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you. As was alluded to earlier, obviously we always try to conduct meetings in open as much as possible. However, under the Municipal Act in Section 239, it does identify various reasons why council can go into closed session to discuss issues that, if they were done in open, may or may not pose a risk for the town. And so, as we've done many times, we have done that. But sometimes there are concerns expressed with regards to whether or not there are any untoward actions or concerns with regards to it, or maybe people aren't even really supportive of the decision and they question that, as we've seen or heard in the past. And as we know, anybody, be a councillor, can go to the ombudsman, or it can be a member of the public, can ask a meeting investigator, which in our case is LAS, I believe, to investigate whether or not council properly followed the rules. And I have talked about this from the first term on and put this forward, that I think that it is in our best interest to ensure that, should we ever be the unfortunate subject of an investigation, whether warranted or not, we have the ability to defend ourselves properly by audio recording the meeting, so that there can be no question that, following the advices of our solicitor, our clerk, and our CAO, that the meeting was conducted properly under the appropriate reference to Section 39 of the Municipal Act, You know, this is not new. Even before I was on council, former Councillor Collins Maracas was also an advocate of audio recording closed sessions. You know, we've talked about it previously. I know that there have been some concerns in the past. We have a old report from 2014 or 15 from our former solicitor Warren Marr with regards to some of the concerns around the retention of records and the access, and I think that all of that needs to be addressed. But you know, year after year, I've seen more and more municipalities within Ontario moving towards the audio recording and or video recording of closed sessions, and they've been able to adopt policies and practices to address all of those concerns. And so from my perspective, I don't see any reason why we cannot take a look at those and adopt some of those best practices to address those concerns and put the town in the best light to ensure that there are no questions when we go into closed session with regards to the validity and the legality of doing so. And so I hope that some members of council will remember past discussions about this item, and I hope that the majority of council will support this motion, and we can then move forward with the proper audio recording of closed session meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Thompson, you mentioned that some other municipalities have taken to this policy, and I was wondering if you had a few examples of some of the municipalities who successfully have enacted this.
Councillor Thompson.
Closed session meetings, municipality, and you'll see a whole list of them from large to small municipalities that have their policies and procedures online that you can review at your leisure.
Councillor.
Okay, I was just hoping for maybe just like, you know, like there's at least a dozen you could say that's adopted it. So clearly you've done some research. I guess in 2014 you mentioned that report and you said that there was some concerns back then, but now you feel that it's warranted moving forward. Could you maybe share some of those concerns that maybe were presented then and how that's changed now?
Councillor Thompson.
I think that's where we can look to other municipalities and how they've addressed those issues with regards to access and retention. The issues were around MFIPA, were about how long do you retain these records, how and what is subject to different regulations. And I think that as some of these things have been tested over time and you look at the other municipalities' best practices, I don't think any one municipality perhaps has the go-to policy, but my hope is that if approved tonight, staff will then research the various ones and bring forward one that suits our needs here in Aurora and capitalizes on them.
Councillor?
Hello? Thank you. Perfect. All right. I mean, I read your motion and the language of it was very well written. I do like the fact that it is a recommendation on the policies and it was more around security and investigative and more protection of making sure that we're doing our jobs and the integrity of what we're being elected to do. And I'd be interested in knowing the appropriateness of the situation from staff and those recommendations. So it's not necessarily this is something that we're enacting right now. It's coming back the report with the recommendations and what it would make sense for us. So I would be in support of that.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys. Oh, sorry, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gaertner first, and then Councillor. Councillor Gaertner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was part of this last time it came to the council table. I think it's important. I think Councillor Thompson has given the reasons why it's important. And I think there are ways to protect the information. And I think having those recordings would be also protective for the town. So I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Thompson, for not giving up. This is the third time, I believe, but I'm in great support of this. I think it's important. Just as Councillor Gaertner mentions, it protects the town, it protects everyone. And I think it's, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, what we say behind closed doors, we say out here, it's fine. I look forward to this happening.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be in support not only with having audio recordings help protect the town and its citizens, but it also protects us as individual councillors as well. So I'd be in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I just said I was in support of this last term. Obviously, I was in support of it in the 2006 term when former Councillor Collins Maracas put it forward. I think it's something important. As I stated earlier, what's said back there is exactly what I would say out here. And it's protection not only for council members, for residents, and for the town as a whole. So I think it's something that we need to do. It's the right step. And I'm glad that we're hopefully moving in this direction after this motion this evening. So thank you, Councillor Thompson, for bringing it back. Any other comments or questions? Call a vote. Councillor Gaertner? Yes. Thank you. That carries unanimously. 9.5, Councillor Gilliland, environmental. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's all right. I didn't. 9.4, Councillor Thompson, construction of a gymnasium at the SARC. Councillor, would you like to move that?
Certainly.
Second? Councillor Cannon. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
This again also relates back to last term. At the time, Director Downey was giving a presentation to Sport Aurora, I think at the time, or maybe it was a larger group, but he did talk about the need for an additional gymnasium in the community, and that spurred conversation at the Parks, Recreation and Cultural Service Advisory Committee, where we then took action and made a recommendation to council that a gymnasium be considered at the SARC. Through those conversations, it was mentioned that at one time when the SARC was being designed, there was discussion around having a gymnasium, and in fact it originally was planned, and then a decision was made not to include it. And so there actually were even drawings available that kind of showed where the gymnasium would have been had it gone forward. And so, council did make a recommendation to refer it to budget, have those conversations, but as we know, as it unfolded, conversations got larger and larger with respect to the Bloomington lands. I think, we also probably threw in Hallmark lands within that, as well as the expansion of SARC, and then the discussion around the creation of an aquatic facility at the SARC, and we went down that road and had a consultant, and we received that report, and it's still pending a budget discussion later this year. And so while I still want council to focus on that being the primary focus and make a decision on whether or not we want to proceed with the aquatic center, I wanted to put this back on the table for discussion at the budget time in the event that council doesn't decide to move forward with the aquatics facility. I still think and believe strongly that there's a need to add a gymnasium to the SARC to complete that facility. And I don't necessarily want to see it fall off the table or be lost this term as we progress forward. And so I'm simply asking that it be put back on the budget for discussion time. We may all have different perspectives about what is the right fit for there, and so I'm asking staff to present the various options. One option was just a simple gymnasium similar to what we had built at the leisure complex, which was just a small gymnasium to complete the SARC and provide some additional services. But it can also be the multi-purpose or the multi-level gym that we talked about that would open opportunities for sport tourism and tournaments, and put those options back on the table for that discussion should council decide not to move forward with the aquatic facility. Or, as we've all read in the report, the aquatic facility does not include the construction of a gym, and so council may decide that maybe the future of the SARC is to do both. But either way, I just want to put this back on the table for conversations. so that at the end of the day, this is one thing that we will make a decision on whether to move forward or not. But to me, it's a holdover from the last term that needs to be resolved one way or another.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gaertner.
I was in the council chamber when the decision was made on the gymnasium, not to do the gymnasium. That gymnasium was actually going to be a youth center, and there would be very little parking involved. So when this came to us recently, we had an idea about how we could get some more parking. That wasn't successful. I don't know how we could add on to this facility without having extra parking. So it can go to budget. I'm fine with that, but the parking is the big issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
I am, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with moving the discussion to budget. That's all the motion is requesting, so I'm happy to oblige. So I'll be in favor to have that discussion at budget time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. 9.5, Councillor Gilliland, now, Environmental Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Would you like to move as is?
Just a friendly amendment, actually. I spoke to the clerk earlier if I could. It was just really a simple cut and paste error. Wanted to add "and community energy plan" from the second last clause of the whereas and add it to the end of the first "now therefore be it resolved."
You just want to make an adjustment to that?
Yeah, I just want to add "and community energy plan." It was just a simple cut and paste error. I was wondering if that was a friendly amendment, if the seconder could.
Mr. Clerk, are we fine to do it this way, if as long as there's a seconder?
Through Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I think it's a fairly innocuous amendment. So if the motion gets seconded with that being moved, I have no problem with that.
Okay. Would someone like to second that? Did everyone catch the drift of that? We're just adding that community energy plan be in that section of the therefore clause. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Can we get that on the screen, Mr. Clerk? Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I thought this was really important to bring forward to the council, and it's something that I've been in talks with since February when I had brought it to the mayor in regards to the community advisory committee that was comprised of the environment and Parks and Rec and Active Trails, and I really felt it deserved a lot of attention. And I also wanted to say thank you to Councillor Gaertner, because she had also had brought a draft motion forward much after COVID. I already had this in motion, so I just want to say thank you for Councillor Gaertner for already thinking the same things. So we're obviously like-minded. There's lots going on in the environment right now that really deserves a lot of focus, and that was really my primary intent with this motion. With all the climate change that's going on, we have a climate adaptation plan that's in the works. We've got the urban forest management plan that's just come back to council, and there's obviously a lot more work to be done on that. And community energy plan that's being engaged right now with the working group, and have some implementation with that. And I really feel that the environment really deserves its own advisory committee in order to give some feedback and hopefully make some good change for Aurora and our town, and how we move forward for the best of our residents here. So I really hope I can get the support of council around the table here and enact the community advisory committee on its own accord. I do have the support from the community advisory as well. They had thought it was a fantastic idea. It was part of our agenda. They agreed. I've also spoken to staff as well, planning and in engineering, and they were right on board, and we're really quite excited with that initiative. And I can't wait for some future discussions with some agenda items that we've already been talking about. And I really hope that we can move this forward quickly and start getting some work done.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Gilliland for bringing this up. I know you've wanted this for quite some time. Absolutely warrants its own committee, and I'm looking forward to getting this off the ground as soon as possible, and hopefully we'll have this passed this evening. So good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I also acknowledge Councillor Gilliland's passion to establish this committee. She's talked about it in the past. I think the only concern I had was that, reflecting back over the years on council and committees, sometimes it's been a challenge to have enough work to be able to, justify those volunteers and members of the committee and their time, and you always want to make sure that there's value for them when they attend. But having looked at some of the Community Advisory Committee meetings over the past little while, and understanding the direction that Councillor Gilliland wants to take the Environmental Committee, I think there's enough work to have the two committees, or at least, I'm willing to move forward with it on the understanding that if, obviously, I wouldn't want to see one committee collapse because there's not enough work to do to support another committee. But on first blush, it certainly looks like there's enough to do for the remainder of the 2 terms, so happy to support the motion in front of us.
Thank you. Councillor Gaertner, then Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, actually, my motion went in on March the 18th, and I was asked to put it on hold because we weren't having any committee meetings at that time. So Councillor Gilliland's motion is more fulsome than mine was, and I agree with it. I would like to ask that the word mitigation is included in the first whereas. Therefore be it decided. When I was doing my election speech, it was that word mitigation was in there, and I think it's important. We can look at a few different things. Mitigating climate change. Maybe we need to figure out how to really keep our mature trees, and there's many other things that could be mitigated, and we could use mitigation for, including encouraging green infrastructure. So I would appreciate if Councillor Gilliland could put in that word mitigation. If council would allow that word mitigation to be included, I think it's has an important meaning and purpose.
You're okay with that? Yep, that's fine. Seconder?
Thank you.
Yep, okay. Where exactly the mitigation? Councillor Gaertner, where exactly did you want that word mitigation, just so the clerk can get it on the...
I don't have the motion in front of me, but I think it would be in the 3rd line of the first, therefore be it, or the 2nd line. It really doesn't matter, either of those 2 lines.
Councillor Gilliland, did you want to...
I think what Councillor Gaertner was alluding to is climate change and adaptation and mitigation initiatives.
Okay, you got that, Mr.
Thank you.
We got that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we were to characterize Councillor Gilliland's first 2 years this term, the one theme that comes and repeats itself is the environment, and so it seems apparent to me that the environment is something that she's prioritizing and she's passionate about. So I'm happy to support her motion.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Well, obviously I'm supportive of this. I want to thank Councillor Gilliland. She she came up. We had a chat about this actually quite a few times, and we said at the beginning of the term when we established the committees, and we put together a lot of the committees into the Community Advisory Committee. At that time, we did say that we would monitor it, see how it goes, and if we felt that there was a need to maybe separate and, kind of bring things back to the way they were, we would reevaluate and do that at that time. And I think it does make sense to move in this direction, and that the Environmental Advisory Committee, if anyone did happen to catch the last Community Advisory Committee, Councillor Gilliland can tell you that it was an action-packed filled agenda that they were actually unable to finish. It was that packed. And so while there was that concern previously that there wasn't enough, I think what we found through the Community Advisory Committee that there was too much for them to do. And so this makes sense, I think, at this time. But the same thing that was said at the beginning of the term, it holds true today, that we will still monitor both committees. We'll monitor all the committees and reevaluate as we move along and see, if things are working, great. If they're not, we can make readjustments. And I think this is a well thought out readjustment, and I'm looking forward to seeing the work that comes out of the Environmental Advisory Committee. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Council, did you guys want to take the health break, or did you want to just get through this? Just finish? All right. 9.6, Councillor Humphreys, Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. Would you like to move this? Sure. Move as is. Seconder, Councillor Gilliland. Go ahead, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. This came to us last week through a Lake Simcoe protection plan. It's a motion that was brought forward looking for support. Absolutely, I believe around the table we showed quite a bit of support. I'd ask the clerk to add this to our agenda so that we can adopt this moving forward. That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Say none. Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes. I vote yes. I did ask.
Oh, I apologize, Councillor Gaertner. No one mentioned it to me. Did you want us to just say something under new business?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that then. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Regional report from July 30th. Someone like to move that? Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys, comments or questions on the regional report? Councillor Gilliland, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I had a chance to look at the report a little bit, and there was a part on the financial impacts of COVID and a section there about reporting back in September, and I believe you just had your meeting last week, and I was just hoping maybe you could give us a little insight of maybe some of the things that you might have learned that might not be reflected in this report.
Well, I can tell you that we didn't necessarily get a fulsome report at that meeting in September yet. We are going to be getting some more in October, but I can tell you that as of now, we're looking at the same tax rate, 2.96, coming in for this year as well. So, but beyond that, they're not doing as bad as initially thought. The Safe Restart Agreement has provided some funds that allow for the region to cover some of the shortfalls. But as I get more information, I'll provide them. If maybe Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel wanted to add anything to that, but no, that's about it right now. But I'll get you more information, Councillor.
Okay.
as we get it.
Perfect. Thanks.
Anything else on the regional report? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to that, with regards to the numbers that's being identified in the report in terms of the loss year to date and the projected loss, is that taking into account the money from the Safe Restart program or not?
No, because this report is from July 30th. So the Safe Restart did
not been identified at that time.
This report is pretty old.
Do you know offhand? I know you may not know it, but how much money the region was given? If not, perhaps you could just
Off the top of my head, I can get that to you, Councillor, unless Ms. Wainwright and Councillor, do you know the number off the top of your head?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, through the transit and the Safe Restart, so they received 2 streams because they have transit. It was roughly around 50 million. I'm not sure exactly what the number was, but it was in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
But I'll get that number for you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Regional report? Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. New business. Councillor Gall. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim. New business. Councillor Humphreys. New business. Councillor Gillen. New business. Not public service. I'll just remind everyone. No. Next week. Is it, what is it that you wanted to get out?
Hello? I just wanted to mention the fall concert that's going on in October. I didn't know if we were going to capture it in the GC next week.
I think we do. Do we not? What's the date of the?
Is it the fall? Is it?
Yeah, so we can. You can do that announcement next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gaertner, did you want to speak to that Lake Simcoe Protection Plan?
I did. Nobody pulled it. But there's a couple of very interesting things here. One is a companion document to the budget, and it's very transparent, very easy to read, relatively easy, I would say, and interesting. And the other thing is this is a new initiative called Stories of Lake Simcoe, Science to Action, and it's excellent and was done in-house, and it just it goes through some of the things that Lake Simcoe does that are very interesting to the general public that they may not know about. So I wanted to mention that, and I'm going to go off camera. The other thing that I missed was Councillor Humphrey's motion on the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. And in fact, I've been speaking about protecting the clean water and Lake Simcoe's responsibility and role in that. And this year, the Ontario government cut $54,000 from water work, and it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it actually is an important amount. And Lake Simcoe was able to find that money in other places, but that is absolutely not sustainable. So thank you, Councillor. It's very important that we let the Ontario government know that they have to keep up the funding. It's clean water is, I don't know, one of the most precious things on earth, and we need to make sure ours is taken care of. And I'm also so glad and so thankful to the councillors, to Councillors Gilland and Humphreys for bringing this forward, and to all of council for the unanimous votes. I felt many times that I was just hitting my head against the wall with respect to environmental measures. And and education and importance. So thank you all for supporting these important environmental initiatives. Climate change is real, and it's not going to be great. So everything we can do will just protect our community and our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaertner. Councillor Thompson, I just got the number from Ms. Waymire Van Kessel, so it's 40,568,659. 23.5 million roughly is straight to the regional municipality of York, and the additional just over 17 million is to support the transit operations. Okay. I do have one. I just want to congratulate Auroran. So last night, if anyone stayed up late enough and watched, obviously it wasn't our Toronto Maple Leafs, but it was the Tampa Bay Lightning, and our hometown Barclay Goodrow won the cup. And I think that when someone reaches the top of their craft and they win, and what an achievement, and I think we're all proud of Barclay and everything that he's done and achieved. And so I just wanted to say congratulations to him on behalf of the town council. And congratulations to his parents and everyone and all his family. It was an incredible series, and a different way of winning the cup in a bubble. So I also did want to mention, I know there were some questions about the Ontario infrastructure financing that had to go to the region. Just to let council know, as our treasurer mentioned, it pretty much is a go. It was approved unanimously without any comments. Also, we just passed the Library Square project monitoring task force. I sent an email out to all of you asking who would like to sit on it. I received feedback and also requests, and through those requests, we'll be appointing Councillor Thompson and Councillor Kim. So I just wanted to let council know that as well. And also, groundbreaking for Library Square will be October 8th at 3:30 p.m. So I know that there's been some conversations and thoughts around Library Square, so I hope that each of you reach out to myself or to Betty and let us know if you will be attending the groundbreaking and the photo op. I don't want to put anyone on the spot and ask them now, but if you could let us know, because space is limited due to COVID. So if you do not want to attend or you're unable to attend, please let us know. And with that, no more new business. Bylaws. Someone like to move them? Councillor Thompson. Second. Councillor Kim. Call the vote. Councillor Gaertner? Bylaws? Is Councillor Gaertner still on the line? No, she's not there? Okay, so we lost Councillor Gaertner. Okay. That carries. Confirm in bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Humphreys. Call the vote. That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.